Hello and welcome to the Minds on the Frontline Podcast, brought to you by the Wayne State University Frontline Strong Together 5 program. I'm Geoff Lassers, one of your hosts, and I've been a professional firefighter, paramedic, educator, and content creator for over 19 years. Minds on the Frontline is co-hosted by Mike Mattern, who is also a professional firefighter and paramedic with over 17 years experience. In addition, Mike is a peer support team member for his fire department and the Frontline Strong Together 5 program. He's also the chair of the Michigan Professional Firefighters Union Behavioral Health Committee and a board member of the Michigan Crisis Response Association. The bottom line, Mike has training and experience with frontline worker mental and behavioral health. On the other hand, I do not. My role is to produce the show, whereas Mike is our resident subject matter expert. Together we hope to inform, educate, and entertain first responders, their families, and the public regarding the realities of frontline work-related mental health challenges. In this episode, we welcome Scott Taylor, a police officer and peer support team member with the City of Warren Police Department. In addition, Scott is the State of Michigan Officer Wellness Liaison to the National Fraternal Order of Police, or FOP. The FOP is the world's largest organization of sworn law enforcement officers with more than 367,000 members. During his 25-plus year career, Scott Taylor has worked as a patrol officer, a school resource officer, a field training officer, a special operations unit member, a crime scene technician, and served on the FBI Violent Crimes Task Force. Scott is proud of all the positions that he has served as a law enforcement officer for nearly 3 decades. But in his words, providing peer support for his fellow police officers is the most important and impactful job he has ever had. We are also joined by Manisha Leary, the FST5 program manager and clinical therapist with a focus on trauma. During this episode, Scott, Manisha, and I will discuss the importance of mental and behavioral health for frontline workers. This turned out to be a great episode, and we appreciate Scott giving us his perspective as a longtime law enforcement officer. Please check us out on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all Minds in the Frontline Podcast social media channels. Thank you. Have a great day. Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Good.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Good morning.
Well, welcome. Everybody knows who Manisha and Mike are. Scott, kick us off. Who are you? What do you do? And where do you do it?
All right. My name's Scott Taylor. I'm currently a Warren police officer. I've been with the City of Warren for 22 years. Prior to that, I was with City of Grosse Pointe Park as a public safety officer, so I do have a little bit of fire experience. Don't anybody hold that against me. So I'm also the union vice president for the Warren Police Officers Association. It's our collective bargaining team that represents us during labor negotiations, disciplines, what have you. I am the president of the Warren FOP 124 Lodge, which is a fraternal order of police. I'm also the officer wellness liaison from the state of Michigan to the national FOP on officer wellness.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a handful, but it keeps me busy.
Well, Scott, that's a pretty interesting background. So how'd you get there? What's your origin story?
Well, I was late in life getting into first responder. I spent the first 16 years of my adult life in the construction manufacturing field. I had a couple of friends who were police officers. I thought it was ridiculous. They weren't making any money. Why would you do that? You know, I'm going to be rich. You're not. And eventually, I started seeing the change where my buddies who were in law enforcement never working. They're always off. They got insurance. They got some good benefits. And I'm like, well, I'm smarter than you are. I can do that. So I literally sold all my businesses, got rid of all my stuff, and went back to school, put myself through an academy, got hired by Grosse Pointe Park. And I got hired. I'm not going to, try to fluff it up. I got hired because I wanted a job with benefits and I wanted a job with schedule, and I wanted money. I don't know when it happened, but shortly after I started, I decided it just dawned on me that this is not just a job, it's a calling. You become the sheepdog. Don't know when it happened, but it happened. And gotta say, in 27 years of being a cop, probably 25 of them were the best times of my life. I look forward to coming to work. God, I used to hate taking days off because it was just so much fun. 25 years will make that, not so much fun after that, but it's we're getting ready to retire and move on to better things.
Well, there's certainly a lot going on in the American social system that is impacting our law enforcement officers and making it tough, right?
Yes.
And I think prior to that, you were getting involved as a peer supporter for your department. But tell us, how did you even get involved in the peer support world and the Frontline Strong Together program?
I started out in this profession 100 years ago, like I said, and I was taught, suck it up, buttercup. I had the T-shirt. I remember my first FTO gave me a pair of black leather gloves, sunglasses, and a T-shirt that said, suck it up. I had that philosophy probably till about 8-9 years ago. I had to sit in on a officer resiliency course put on by the National FBI Academy because they needed a union guy. So they put me in. My president said, "You're going." I said, "Oh, gee, thanks." It was a 5-day class. About halfway through, we're sharing experiences, and I had a coworker who I've known for 15 years. One of the greatest guys in the world, told a story about how he got to rock bottom, and he was sitting on his bedroom floor with his gun in his mouth, and he contemplated ending it. And I never, ever thought that this guy would ever say anything like that. It kind of dawned on me that, hey, this stuff's true. This is what's happening. About the same time, I just gotten out of the FBI Violent Crime Task Force, so I was an evidence tech, crime scene technician. What do you do as a crime scene technician? You go document all the crappy stuff. Well, I found that after work, I was going home, and I instead of my normal 2 cocktails, it turned into 4 or 5, and I started remembering the things of a 25-year career that had nothing to do with that day's work. I mean, just bringing stuff back that there's no reason it should have came back. At that point, I kind of just realized this is real. This stuff's not made up. It's real. Thankfully, I didn't have to get to the point where I was on my bedroom floor with a gun in my mouth to realize that as first responders, we see more than everybody sees. In 1 week, we see more than everybody sees in their lifetime, right? I think we can pretty much agree on that. And it affects us. It's real. There's no reason that we should have to relive that over and over and over. And from that point on, Frontline Strong Together started, formed, and I was assigned to that through my union president again to represent the FOP. I kind of bought in right away, I think. And this is right now, of all the things I've done in my career, and I've had a great career, City of Warren has been fantastic to me. I've done more things than most officers can. This is the single most important thing that I can do, is to get the wellness and resiliency program for first responders. By far. If we can save one life or make one life better for our coworkers, it's just the most important thing ever.
Scott, that is awesome. So let's start talking about a little bit about the union a little bit, because I know there's a lot of folks in the FOP who don't necessarily understand exactly what we do, and they still kind of think, suck it up, buttercup, it's kind of fluff. So can you expand on how we reach those individuals?
So first of all, it's not just the FOP, it's industry-wide. The FOP represents over 100,000 officers in the United States and actually in the world, because we have several labor divisions overseas. So we're the biggest representative of police officers. And it's not just the FOP, it's the police officers themselves that don't understand or don't believe in it. We were recently at a training, and we had a guy, you could tell the guy had to be a 30-year guy from Detroit. And we explained to what we're here for, mental health, well-being, and for resiliency. And his reply to me was, them soft-ass people, because that was his attitude. I turned, I looked at her, I go, that guy's got 38 years on the job. He's still working, 3rd or 4th wife, and he's never going to get it. What we need to do is we need to take our first responders, and I'll refer to the police because obviously that's where I have my experience. Get rid of the stigma. Right? We need to get rid of the fact that we're men. Men don't need help. We need to get rid of that stigma. As the younger generation comes in, I think that's going to be easier to do. I don't want to say they're not as hard as the old guys, but traditionally, law enforcement has been drawn from a military background, correct?
Yeah.
So now you got veterans who went through stuff, turned to police officers who go through stuff, and it's the same thing. We don't need help. Yeah. So get rid of the stigma, education. Promote Frontline Strong Together. That's a great resource. There are 100 other resources, but in Michigan, that's the resource that we want to push and we want to use.
So Scott, you're talking about, you were sitting in that class and you realized there were some things that were going on in your own life and you're like, wow, that's me. What are some of the things that hit you in that class where you're like, wow, this is describing me. These are the things that are going on with me. What are some of those things that you saw in yourself that kind of gave you that light bulb moment, like, holy shit, this is me?
Yeah, the coping mechanisms. How do we cope with things? Is first responders, we've got the most disturbed sense of humor in the world because we're the only ones that think it's funny. B, we drink more than the general public, and that's just, it is what it is.
Well, I think it's also built into our culture. Anything good that happens, we go to the bar. Anything you get promoted, you go to the bar. It's kind of built into the culture right off the bat. The drinking portion is built in.
I don't know any cop or fireman who doesn't know every barmaid at every bar in their city. And I remember when I had first gotten married, and actually I take it back, I was just dating my current wife. And yes, current, because like every other cop and fireman, I have at least one or two. Well, this one's a keeper. If you're watching, honey, this one's a keeper.
Good job.
Yeah. It'd be 4:30 in the morning. You come home and she's like, "Where you been?" "I'm at the bar." Bars close at 2. I'm like, "Not for us," because it was just that's the way it worked.
Yep.
So for me, some of the coping mechanisms, I was drinking more. As first responders, we know that you need to talk about your day with somebody. So you go to the bar, you talk about with your buddies. You don't share it with your wife, the most important person in your life for your kids, because why would you want to expose your wife to the crap you got to see? And I was getting a little pushback from my wife of, why don't you want to talk about work? Well, because my day sucks. It's great for me because I got that type of personality, but not for you. You cry when you watch TV. This is not going to be good for you. It took a few of those things, and it took, like I said, one of my coworkers, when he opened up and shared, that puts a realization on it when a guy that you've worked a scout car with tells you that he hit rock bottom. Kind of opens your eyes a little bit. Fortunately, I didn't have to get to that before I bought into it. And another thing for me that's super important is I have a son who's a detective in Warren. Even though I tried to talk him into doing anything else, I tried to talk him to be a fireman. I said, "God, listen, you work 7 days a month. You make great chili. You have a clean car."
7? Who's working 7?
Who's working 7? I got to find that place.
I'm just guessing, guys. I'm just guessing. And when he decided to take the path he was at, so now I got a kid who's 7 years on the job. I got to look out for him and his welfare. I got to make sure that he has good mental health for the rest of his career, and then all the other guys that are still there. I'm a short timer. I'm leaving shortly, but this is a career. It's more important that we make sure that this career carries on and our guys stay safe.
And I think that's an important thing that we're starting to see nowadays is all of us who went through it. I'm on 17 years. I think you're close to 20.
Just got over 19, yeah.
And the change is like what you just talked about. We want to make it better for the people coming in after us, like your son.
Absolutely.
We all went through that period of, keep your mouth shut. If you can't handle it, find a new job. But we're all realizing what it actually did to us. And rather than pass that down the line, it seems like this kind of generation right now is trying to change that for the next generation. And that's nice to see across the board, whether it be police, fire, EMS, corrections, dispatch. And that's nice to see because we're starting to see it a lot more.
And I think a lot of that applies to the fact that is just as first responders, that's what we do is we want to help people, right? And we've always said that, nobody helps us like we do. That's always been the thing with cops and firemen and just first responders in general. So we have that need to make things better for us, for people. And like I said, I have the personal interest because I got to make it better for my kid who's, so that kind of gave me a little motivation. But even if my son wasn't there, I'd be doing it for the guys that I've been representing for 20 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They mean a lot to me. And that's, I'm going to, when I do leave, that's one of the things I'm going to miss is the being able to help out with the little day-to-day stuff. It's great when you can save a guy's job or reduce a discipline or get a big raise, but just on the little stuff. And that's where I spend most of my day. Unfortunately, I have an office. I have an inside job now because I'm old. But the office is close to where everybody stops in with, "Hey, just got a quick question. Hey, how about this?" And I fix things. I get answers. That I'm going to miss because it's, you're helping the guys out. It amazes me how many of our guys don't read a contract. They don't need to. They have me.
Yeah.
So all they can do is come ask the question,
Yeah. So, Scott, you mentioned that you kind of shied your son away from becoming a police officer. Tell me a little bit about what it is that you learned over your career that you didn't want him to see or experience.
I don't know, every day for the last 27 years. I mean, nobody ever calls a police officer because they're having a good day, right? We never go, "Hey, I just felt like having a cup of coffee and someone to talk to. Come on over." You see the worst of the worst. You get involved where it's a violent career. I mean, I get paid to be violent because the people I deal with are violent. So I've got to either resolve that or be more violent. It's a terrible way to go every day. Having said that, best job ever, right? I wouldn't change it for anything. I'd like to have done it earlier so I could have retired 10 years earlier. That would have been nice. But it's just the day-to-day crap that we see. I didn't want my son to go through that. I don't really want anybody to go through that. But you've got the type A personalities. That's us. I mean, I don't know any first responder who ever went, you know what, I probably shouldn't have done that. Maybe they do their 24th or 25th year when they've had enough. But if he doesn't like it, get out. Very few people get out once you're here. Very few people get out.
It's hard to normalize back to regular civilianhood after you've been an emergency responder. It really is. It's different.
That's going to be, that's part of the wellness program I have in Warren. So I'm trying to put together a program where we teach you how to be retired. You know, because you go from being the man to being, you know, I'm going from Officer Taylor to Mr. Taylor. That's a big adjustment when you've had 25 years of you know, you're the man for 25 years. And that's one of the things that I want to focus on. I'd like to implement that with our Frontline Strong, because that's a big deal. In Warren, we've had 2 or 3 over the last 20 years, 2 or 3 suicides, and it's been retired cops, not on duty or not active. So it's a big adjustment. That's something that we need to work with. It's a big deal, man. It's going to be weird. I'll let you know when I'm sitting on the beach sipping a margarita. I'll let you know if it's okay.
Right.
Sounds terrible. Sounds terrible.
Well, there are people that win. Shout out to Joe Stanley. He retired from the West Bloomfield Fire Department, and he's one of my favorite follows on Instagram because I aspire to live his life in retirement. He's having a great time.
That's awesome.
So those are the types of people, active, having a good time, good family, basically all the things that therapists recommend to us to avoid these things. You know, good old Joe's working out every day on his bike or riding motocross. He's hanging out with the love of his life, his wife. He's got his son and daughter around him. Those are pretty good things. And he lives up north doing all the Four Seasons stuff, right? And hopefully you get to experience that type of thing when you leave.
Yeah, that's awesome. We also know there are a certain percentage of first responders who this stuff doesn't bother them. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I call them psychopaths, but I mean, this stuff just doesn't bother them. But that's far and few between. If you think for a minute that you're going to do a 25-year career and not have to seek help at some point and still sustain a normal life afterwards or during, it ain't going to happen. You're nuts. Compare this to military veterans. These guys go on a 2 or 3 year deployment. They see all kinds of crap, right? We do the same thing over 25 years, not 3 years. So we just spread it out a little bit. It's a scary fact.
Yeah, the cumulative effect of 25 years, you're not getting away from it. Like you said.
No.
We get dosed with so much stuff on a daily basis. Our daily dose is what some people have in a lifetime dose. And that lifetime dosing, you're right, there's no way you're coming out of that unscathed.
No.
I don't know anybody who retires who are the same person they were when they started.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And then now let's throw in the public perception. Now, having said this, I do believe that the negative perception of first responders, and I'll say specifically police officers, because everybody loves firemen. You know, they wave to you guys with 5 fingers. I only get
cooler
one.
trucks than you.
Well, that too.
100%.
That too.
100%.
Definitely the trucks.
I believe that the public opinion is the verbal minority. I think the most of the United States of America supports all first responders. They support police officers. They support what we do, but they're quiet about it. The ones who are protesting, they protest loud, and they get the attention. So I still think there's a lot of support. But in the back of your mind, you're always worried about being Monday morning quarterback, right? Now let's throw body cams, throw scout car videos, cell phones. You almost have to be perfect in this job, making split-second decisions that may save your life or someone else's. That's a tough job to have, you know?
I can't even hit a golf ball off a tee box if more than 2 people are looking at me. And you want me to do all that?
Fair enough. Exactly. Yeah. Go ahead, play through. Go ahead, play through.
Yeah,
Please keep going.
No, you're exactly right.
So you mentioned about going from Officer Taylor to Mr. Taylor, right? After retirement and how that looks. And we've talked about on this podcast many a times before how it's the struggle of what you do becomes your identity. It becomes who you are, right? So even in my profession, you know, you become the trauma therapist or this or that when you just want to be Manisha. That's it. Like I don't want to be, right? But for first responders, it's hard to make that transition. So what do you suggest for first responders to not have what you do become who you are?
My suggestion is from day one, from the day you get hired out of an academy, don't forget about your civilian friends. Don't forget about people that are not in your line of work. Don't hang out with nothing but cops or nothing but firemen, because you'll get consumed, and that's all you'll talk about. If I'm coming to your house for dinner and we're all firemen and cops, that's all we're going to talk about is cop and fireman stuff. No, keep your civilian friends. That's a very, very important. Keep that portion of your social life there. Don't cover your basement walls with all your police and fire memorabilia. You know what? We have 4 walls in the basement. You get one. You can put all your stuff up on one. Then I want some beer signs on the other one. I want some Harley Davidson stuff on one. You know, maybe an old Farrah Fawcett poster from the 70s. Still have mine. Just realize from day one that you have another life. Make sure you're interactive with your family. Don't take your 5-year-old and train him to be a cop. Train him to be a baseball player, a hockey player, lacrosse, soccer, not a real sport. But either way,
shots fired.
Yep.
that would be my number one suggestion is from early on, just don't get consumed.
Yeah. What do you guys say?
That's huge. I've got friends who I've known forever from high school, middle school. Hanging out with them is way different than hanging out with people from work. They're the people who kind of knew you before you were Officer Taylor or a firefighter or paramedic or whatever. And you're right. It's that whole other world. Like, you're not talking about work. You kind of release yourself from that. But the other part is, like, when you leave work, you leave work. When I leave work, I'm now dad. Whereas if you keep that kind of separate, your whole identity isn't the fire service. I coach my son's football team. When I leave work, that's my thing for the day, is I'm going to go be a coach, or I'm going to go be a dad, or whatever. Where you see the guys who have problems are the ones who, off duty, they wear a fire shirt every single day, or a police shirt. By the way, first responders love free T-shirts, and we will wear them freely.
That's usually why they're wearing it.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
That's actually a fact.
Yes,
That's a fact.
yes. So, I mean, they're the ones who are wearing the fire gear 24/7. You know, they're talking about it. You got to have a separate life outside. When I go to work, that's work me. When I leave work, that's Mike. I'm just Mike. That's a big thing for me, is keeping that separation.
That's huge. Don't be the guy that takes the prep radio home with you in the car.
Yes.
To listen to what's going on while you're at home.
But don't get me wrong. I mean, early in my career, I was into the job. Like, I'm still into the job. But at some point, you have to realize there's something more to you than that job. There's a life outside of that job. That's a huge thing that you really need to realize. And hopefully you realize it sooner than later. When you walk out the door at 8 o'clock, that's it. Mm-hmm. That's work.
I think you'll like it more, too. I found that the more I'm able to tune out of the fire department when I'm off duty and hang out with, let's say, normal people.
Yeah.
By the time I get back, I'm like, all right, what's going on at the firehouse, right?
Oh, you got to get back to the drama.
Right,
you know,
all the things. Yeah. What's the new SOG? What's this? What's the contract? What the cops do? What's going on? Oh, did you hear what's his name broke the thing? That becomes like the fun hangout. And you're like, oh, I'm working. Oh, I forgot we went on 7-8 calls today. That becomes more fun when you can leave it alone.
Right. You come back to the world's biggest high school with all the drama.
Oh, my gosh.
The rumors.
Oh, who screwed something up?
Yeah.
Did you hear Steve's got to go over to admin? Or
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. So knowing that it's real, knowing that we all are going to suffer some degree of issues, whether it's something that takes us down or not, how can frontline workers get help if they think they need it?
Step 1, put stigma aside. Forget about it. Step 2, there's a million different resources. The one I'm going to hear talk about is going to be Frontline Strong Together. We've got a website. We've got phone numbers. We've got podcasts. We have a YouTube channel. I was just aware of that. It's pretty awesome. We have the resources. Our ultimate goal is to set up a peer support team for either every department, fire, police, corrections, or every region. And that's something, once we get going, Manisha and I will come to your department and we will show you how to set it up. We'll give you the paperwork, the SOP. We'll train you. We'll get you going, and we'll be there for further support. If not, go to the website. There's phone numbers. There's emails. Call me.
Well, those are great things to really consider, but it's really hard to have a peer support team if your administration doesn't fully buy in. Now, there's chiefs out there that are very pro peer support teams, and they do everything they can to support them. There's some chiefs who may not see the value quite as clearly. So what do you say to those chiefs that you want to empower to take advantage of this great program that we have through FST5? And what do you also say to those chiefs who may not see the light yet?
So it's not only is it difficult, it's impossible if you don't have support from administration. It's absolutely impossible. So the chiefs or the admin who buy into it because they know it's the right thing to do. They know we have a problem. Easy peasy, right? You get them this is what you need. And they buy in because they know it's right. Now, the chiefs that don't buy in, they don't believe it, they're still the suck it up buttercups. You go and explain to them that you realize with this program, you are going to save a ton of money in insurance premiums. You are going to save a ton of money in days time off. You're going to save a ton of issues with officer discipline. We sell it that we make their life easier because this is going to correct those problems for them. And if they have half a brain, which they probably have half a brain, they're going to buy into that because they're going to know, A, it's going to help my budget. B, it's going to help my manpower. And C, I don't have to write guys up as often. Let's see how this works. You should be able to at least to get let them get a taste of it, to try it. And all those things will happen. Absolutely all those things will happen with proper support for mental health, well-being, and officer resiliency. All of those things will happen. Less sick time, less disciplines, definitely less insurance premiums, which affects the entire city. That's how you sell it.
So what's the ask? If that's the sell, that sounds like I can't say no to it. But at the end of the day, what's the ask from FST5 to do that? He's like, well, but, and if this, then that. So what is FST5 capable of doing for those departments? Just walk in and handle it?
First of all, the easiest sell is don't cost nothing. Don't cost you nothing. Mm-hmm. We'll come in. We've got all your paperwork right here. Here's your SOP. All you got to do is plug your department name in and have your city attorney look at it. Good deal. We're going to train all your people once you pick your peer team at no cost. We're going to get this program going, and if 6 months at no cost to you, if you don't see a difference, you don't think it's working, then shut it down. Just get your foot in the door. FST5 will do all of that. We'll train them. We'll set them up. We'll hold their hand through the entire process till they're up and running. And then when they hit a snag, we'll be there to help them with that.
Mm-hmm. Manisha, how is it possible to do this for free? Explain to everybody where this is all coming from. This isn't like a business we're running here.
Yeah, no, it's not coming from my bank account, unfortunately. But yeah, so this is all free because the state of Michigan believes in what FST5 is doing. They believe in what Frontline Strong is doing. So this is a grant-funded and supported program. Wayne State administers the program, and what we're doing is offering all we can to our first responders at free and low cost. So of course, all of our treatments can't be 100% free, but we try to get you into a space where this isn't costing you anything, because the biggest cost is you not being here, or you losing your job, or you not having the connection with your family. That's the biggest cost. Right. So the reality is it's already costing our first responders so much to not have a program like FST5 and not be a part of this program. So when you ask what the ask is give us a chance. Just try us.
We've seen what hasn't worked in the past 50 years. Why don't you give us 6 months to show you what we can do now? How about that?
And let's just be clear, we're doing something that most states have not even started yet. So this is an opportunity for departments, for chiefs, for everyone to be a part of something that is going to change the face of what first responder work looks like in the state of Michigan. And we want everyone to be a part of it. So
keep in mind, this program also helps with officer recruitment and retention, right? Law enforcement, fire community, we're small communities, right? Bunch of guys know you, bunch of guys know you, bunch of guys know me, bunch of guys know that Warren PD is a big department. It's a great department to work for. Why is it so good? Because it takes care of its guys. That word gets out, you're going to get people that want to come there. You're going to get people that don't want to leave, whatever the department is.
Right.
So that helps with retention and recruitment, which is a huge issue right now for all first responders.
Yeah, it's weird how if you have enough of a good camaraderie around you, high morale, and a decent wage, how you'll retain people.
Crazy.
It's weird. It's weird how that works out.
You treat people good and you pay them well.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. Funny how they stick around. And they're a little less stressed. They're
Right.
more willing to work with you.
Right.
They become peer supporters, and it feeds the system.
I agree. You pay me enough to buy a boat, I'll be less stressed on my boat on my days off.
You laugh, but like a vacation is designed to de-stress you. And if I can afford 1 or 2 vacations with my family,
absolutely.
Holy moly, I'm making memories for my kids. I'm giving my full attention. I can actually afford it. And we're not talking about going to Belize and living off the, for 20, 30 days here. We're talking about actually just a life where you don't have to work multiple jobs, or, some people call overtime their side job. Because there's so much overtime now, It doesn't make sense to go get a side gig. You just keep working overtime, which is not good for your brain.
Pretty much, I don't know if any department does have unlimited overtime right now. Between all the state grants, between the shortage, it's available. And like you said, it's great if that's all you want to do is make money, but it's not safe. It's not healthy.
Balance. It can't just be the money. You got to have the money, the time off.
Yep.
You got to have a balance of it. So it makes you, like you said, number one, a human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great words. This was a great episode. I really had fun with you, Scott. It was great meeting you. You're our first, I think, police officer on the show.
No.
No?
Wade Cop.
Oh, Wade Cop.
Wade Cop.
Wade
yeah,
Cop.
we
Wade
had-
Cop.
Yeah,
Yep.
we had a Wade Cop.
I forgot back to that episode. Well, we're going to have you back real soon, and maybe you can bring some of your law enforcement officers
It'd
with
be
you.
my pleasure, and I'd be happy to fill the room with cops for you.
I'm going to fill the room. Just one.
Let's go easy on that.
Can I at least bring 2 so I'm not outnumbered?
Sure.
Sure,
All right, that'll
sure.
work.
Positive. Yeah.
Yes.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much for having me.
Great.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you to Scott Taylor and Manisha Leary for joining us on the Minds on the Frontline podcast. We hope everyone enjoyed this episode. We have more great content coming out soon. In the meantime, check us out on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And make sure to like, subscribe, and follow all Minds on the Frontline podcast social media channels. Thank you for listening and have a great day.